Thank you very much. I don't have any disclosures. It's interesting thinking about the word extinct. You usually think about big angry animals. Because what we're talking about here is the band. It's certainly not fierce. The interesting thing, my perception of the band is that it was a philosophy as much as a thing. And in many ways, it's hard to completely kill a philosophy. And I think that's sort of what I'm going to be talking about here today. It's all related to how it started. There was no tradition of bariatric surgery in Australia. Paul O'Brien and John Dixon sort of codified it all and developed this philosophy of looking after the patients. And it got very early public and professional acceptance. This is Vern, who came up with the band, and Mityuj Belashev, who did the first one. And Paul went over there very soon. It coincided with a real surge in advanced laparoscopic surgery. In Australia, there wasn't much bariatric surgery, and it was almost all open. VBGs, bypasses, and a few BPDs. But people just weren't coming for it. And surgeons were developing skill sets that made this very doable. And the world was becoming increasingly obese. And then Walter Porys published his amazing paper about the diabetes, which I think drove it even more. This is Paul O'Brien, my old mate, and he really got this going. They laid the groundwork and developed the philosophy behind band management. And then they spread the word and ran courses. They kept data and published it, which tended to give it some strength. This was me before Paul did my band 22 years ago. And I've lost 120 pounds and kept it off. I went public about it early because I thought it might encourage people if they see a surgeon who's, the patients used to come in and say, "Hey, mate, you're fatter than I am. Why don't you go and have an operation?" So when they saw that I'd done it, the word spread a lot. And I think it really kept building up these numbers. It's all about the follow-up. It's a two-way street. And this is why I think it's survived down there, and also in places in America where the surgeons have adhered to this philosophy. It's all about follow-up, and it's a lot of work. And I think that was one of the issues in the long run that sort of really clobbered the band. It's just the amount of work you have to do to adjust them properly. And it's hard for the patients learning how to eat the different way, and I think this led to a lot of unease. And they would then say, "Take this thing out, I can't stand it." So O'Brien, as I said, kept data. And this is his nearly 8,500 bands, which he followed up for 20 years, and I'm one of them in there. And you can see these are pretty good numbers. It's in the 40% excess weight loss, and it's pretty substantial. So NYU in bariatrics is like a little outpost of Australia, because that's where I've worked for like 16, 17 years. And I brought that philosophy here, and we still do bands. During COVID, we did about 1,000 cases in a year, which is quite a way down for us. But interestingly, 110 of them were bands. And I'd like to share a bit of data about revisions and salvage that I think has also contributed to the band not being extinct. We looked at 569 people who had been told to take their bands out. And they came to us with failing bands. And 42% we managed just by adjustment, 41% by revision, and 17% we took them out and did something else. And they kept doing well. And I think it's this keep on keeping on philosophy that came from O'Brien. Bariatric surgery was an open book. And we had a 6-year lead on acceptance of the band in Australia compared to America. And there was none of that. It was really pretty unpleasant when the band was introduced here. There's a lot of vitriol about it, and obviously it persisted. But the fact that there wasn't in Australia created a massive numbers in the community of people who'd done well. And this led to more people doing it, and it still does. It's not what it was, but it's alive. Like everywhere else in the world, sleeves #1 in Australia, but increased awareness of weight regain, reflux, and Barrett's has led to a gentle band resurgence, as it has in centers in America who still do it. Before I came to this meeting last week, I saw 5 new band consults. They all knew someone who'd done well. During the COVID year in Australia, which had terrible lockdown, they did 316 bands, even in the middle of COVID. It's still going. That's data from Wendy Brown in Melbourne. So, in summary, it's not dead yet. It's absolutely not what it was, but I don't think it's extinct. No.